Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Think Small podcast. I'm here today with Lindsay Dotson of Sigma Design. She's the president and CEO. My name is Monica Dema of MD Inc. It's so great to speak with you today, Lindsay. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Of course. So let's jump right into it. What exactly does Sigma Design do? I know it's an engineering firm. I know it does pretty cool things, but for our audience, if you can just tell us a little bit about what the company does and is.
Yeah, for sure. So Sigma Design, we are an engineering services company, which means customers come to us for all sorts of their needs to help them solve their problems. And how we solve their problems could be a variety of different ways. We could have, maybe they just need an engineer on site for 6 months alongside their team to help them get across the finish line on that project. Maybe they need us to fabricate some parts, or perhaps they even need us to do the entire design and all the way through the manufacturing process. So our purpose statement is challenges accepted, solutions delivered. That's what we are in the business of, is figuring out how to solve all of our customers' problems.
That's great. And so you go as far as the engineering aspect of it. Do you also do the manufacturing of these parts?
We do also do the manufacturing if that is what the customer would like us to do.
That's great.
We don't do, really high volume manufacturing like a contract manufacturer might out of Asia. Doesn't typically make a lot of financial sense for us or our customers, but we have found that it makes a lot of sense on either on high or low volume, high cost types of products, or perhaps before they're ready to take their product over to Asia in smaller volumes when they're still trying to refine their manufacturing process. We can help with that. Reduces travel. Their engineers love it, so they don't always have to go to Asia, things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's nice that you can do all of that kind of in one-stop shop, or at least you have the awareness when it's not possible or financially feasible for clients to be able to do that. I think,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, being a consultant in that way is priceless.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see customers, the light bulb moment come on for them, like, oh, you mean we don't have to go over to Asia? Oh, you mean we don't have to find another partner? And it's like, no, we can do it all right here for you.
That's great. That's great. Less headache. And
100%.
You came up as an engineer. Can you talk a
Right.
little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm a trained engineer. My background was in computer engineering, and so I spent a good 15 years as a firmware engineer. I worked in the capital equipment manufacturer in the semiconductor industry, and I had the pleasure of going super deep into a technology there, getting a couple patents, which was great. And then I realized that I didn't have a lot of breadth in my engineering experience, so I started looking around, and that's when I found Sigma and came over here about 13 years ago, started here as an individual contributor engineer, and just kept saying yes to whatever opportunity came my way, and here I am.
There you go. So
Yeah.
How does that background, your 13 years and saying yes, characterize and fit into your leadership style?
Wow, great question. So, as an engineer, it's a blessing and a curse, right? I'm a problem solver by nature, and so I'm always looking around the corner to find, to look ahead, think ahead, and plan ahead. That's a great attribute as a leader, but it's also, I found that I had to develop other skills within my leadership that aren't necessarily natural for an engineer, mostly more on the human side of things. So understanding that companies are run by people. And so really developing that over the last several years has been key to my growth. And I think the two together makes me a really interesting and unique leader.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies I work with are STEM-related, engineer heavy, and what we do is the marketing side of things, where we kind of translate the nerdy speak and the very technical speak into human. Because often the procurement manager or somebody of that stature isn't an engineer by training. So talking to them like a human, or the end customer, is super important. So I think harnessing that skill, would you say, contributed to your success as a leader within Sigma?
Oh, 100%. I remember distinctly when that transition happened. I was in the engineering team and I had an opportunity to go over on the business side and work with non-engineers. And I realized, wow, this is a completely different group of people, and how I interact with them, how I lead them, how I talk to them, what they need from me was night and day different.
Right.
As an engineer, most of the engineers that I led, all they cared about was that I was competent, technically competent, right? So that was easy. I had proved myself that. I went over to the other side, on the business side, and I realized they don't necessarily care that I'm technically competent. They want to know that I'm a real human and that I care about them and their struggles. And so
emotional competence.
Yeah, absolutely, that emotional intelligence. And at the same time, I also had a kind of an epiphany, realizing how kind of jerky the engineers were towards the other part of the organization, right? And it wasn't an intentional thing. It's just, that's the nature of who we are. We're very, technical in nature, and just want to dive in and solve the problem, and sometimes forget the human aspect. So
process oriented, for sure.
Yeah. So that really helped me to bridge that gap between those two groups, because I could talk to the engineering team on the technical aspect, but then also bring in the human side. And so I really started to see that opportunity not only for myself, but in the company as well.
That's a great position to be in. And I remember, Lindsay, you chatting about the single point of failure within your organization. You've written about it as well. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so also as an engineer, I would solve a lot of the problems myself. I was very competent, and I started to realize that that wasn't necessarily helping the organization or myself in the long term. It didn't allow space for others to step up, solve those problems themselves, or learn how to solve those problems. And so I, even though it was hard for me to step back, I practiced it, and I've been pretty good at it. Being able to allow others and the space to learn and grow and solve those problems. And so for me, it was really putting in the guardrails. And I talk about something my dad used to say, which is just keep it between the ditches, Lindsay. And for the long time, I thought, he was just talking about driving. Nope, he's talking about life, right? And so it's like, that's the goal, whether you're a leader, whether you're a parent, whether it's in work, professional, it's really, the intent is just to have a wide breadth or berth for your ability for people to move, explore, figure it out themselves, have some guardrails so that they don't fall into the ditches. That's our job, is to help them stay within that, but give them that freedom to figure it out and learn and grow for themselves.
Right. There's something so valuable in that too, right? Because you learn by doing, and yes, you have so much more wisdom perhaps because you've done this 50,000 times. However, learning how somebody else does something also gives you insight that you get to learn from. It might take a little longer.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, 100%. I've learned so many things going, I never would have thought to solve it that way, or I never would have done that. Wow. Right. That's so cool.
Right. And now you add to your wisdom, and that person has learned by doing. So that's a really great way of approaching leadership, especially at the CEO level that you embody. So in our earlier discussion too, you were open about a season where grit stopped working for you. Teenagers work, cancer diagnosis. What did that feel like for you, in especially working full time?
Ironically, I was finding success at work, but with all of those things happening at the same time, it honestly felt like I was failing everywhere. It felt like I had failed as a mother, I failed as an engineer, I failed as a leader, I failed, I thought I was doing all the right things for my health, I failed there. I mean, it just felt across the board like I had failed. And how that showed up in my body was a variety of different ways, but it was hard. Yeah. I had to grapple with what that really meant, and that I hadn't failed. It's just what I had been doing wasn't working anymore, and I needed to change my approach to how I led, how I looked at my health, how I parented, all the things.
So what was the moment where you went from resisting to accepting?
I don't know if there's an exact moment I can pinpoint, but I remember there was, several weeks or months of period of time where I would spend, kind of journaling and thinking through all the very different aspects of my life. And I just, through that experience, or through that time and through that experience, I realized the only thing I could do was to just accept that this was the reality, right? This I had cancer. My kids weren't the kids I thought I was going to have as teenagers, right? It was just really hard, but it didn't mean it wasn't bad. It just was, right? I started moving away from labeling things good versus bad. It just was. Right. And I read some books and learned about concepts of radical acceptance and how really that was I was in control of that. And I was the one that was causing all of my own suffering, if you will, by thinking about this in a negative way, as opposed to thinking about it, well, this is life. And now how I can approach things differently, just with observation and kind of sitting back and thinking, interesting. Now what can I do? It was like another input into my system, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's how I've been approaching things lately, personal life or professional life. It's instead of saying, well, why would he or she do that to me? It's like, oh, that's an interesting way to respond to an email or to speak to me. Now, how do I want to respond? Right?
Yes.
Instead of saying it's good or bad or negative, positive, it's just interesting. And when you approach things with curiosity, I think the lens with which you can problem solve becomes a little wider.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So knowing that you are ultimately superhuman on the inside with all of the things that you can do, now that you're in this leadership role, what does that mean for you and for the company and that synergy?
I spend a lot of time talking with and language within the company around, being open, being curious, seeking to understand. I think probably people here are sick of hearing me say that, but a lot of times, when things aren't working correctly, different groups are frustrated with each other. They're starting to make assumptions about, well, they did this, well, they did that. Right. And I'm like, hold on. Did you seek to understand? Go ask them, hey, help me understand. Why did this happen? Or why did you choose that? And most of the times, probably 9 times out of 10, they get some new piece of information and they're like, oh, I didn't realize. Now it makes sense. And so it kind of diffuses the situation. They now understand why someone in a different group may have done something that may have caused, some pain for the other team. And then they have a common ground, common understanding that they're then able to work together to come up with a solution that is going to work for both. And so it's really changed, breaking down the silos in all the different groups and all bringing us together on the same team, which has been pretty cool. And I think a huge part of some of the success that we've seen of recent is that work that we've been doing to just really break down those silos, because we have to all be working together to achieve our goals.
Yeah, 100% empathy is super important. And,
oh, yes, 100%.
Is it Don Miguel Ruiz that wrote the book, The 4 Agreements? And one of the agreements is to take nothing personally.
Yep.
Right? And when you don't take anything personally, then you get to that point of curiosity much more quickly to move through the emotion and actually solve the problem in a meaningful way for all, not just for self. So in our discussions, the audience wants to talk about growth a little bit. Mm-hmm. So growth for Sigma Design looks like what in the next 3 years and the next 5? And we're not going to hold you to it. It's just more of a curiosity of what you envision.
Sure. So we have pretty ambitious goals for hitting 2030. We want to triple our revenue in that time period. And we started out on this mission a little over a year and a half ago, and we're finding some success, and which has been pretty exciting. And we have a decent plan on how we're going to achieve those goals. I think we're working towards them and making progress, and we're also having a little luck, as you always helps with business.
Yeah, I find the harder you work, the luckier you are.
Right.
So I'm not asking you to give away your secrets, but what are some of the mechanisms in your plan that will get you to triple? And it's just 3.5 years.
Right. So for our situation, we believe we are one of the best kept secrets in the industry. And so we are really doubling down on our marketing efforts and to still get the word out on who we are and what we can provide, because we are very unique. There aren't a lot of companies that can provide that full suite of services. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, which has been a struggle for our marketing team, is when people, ask us, what do you do? Or, what can you do? We're like, oh, we can do it all. And they're like, well, what do you do with that? Right. And so we're getting a little bit more intentional about how we talk about our services. Not to say we are getting rid of any of our services, because oftentimes when our customers come in the door for perhaps one service, then they realize, oh, you can do so much more. And so being really intentional about, these are the, half a dozen services we're really going to go after and market within these industries. And then we can help them, that grows the business. And then once they are within our organization, we can offer more services, and then the word kind of gets out like that. Right. So that's been a huge effort on the sales and marketing side. And then internally, we are on the production side of the house, really honing in on getting as efficient as possible, and honing in on our processes, as well as making sure we have all the right people in all the right positions so that we can execute. Because the worst thing we can do to our sales folks is to flop on the execution after they work so hard to get that sale.
Right. Both of those pipelines need to be accurate and working well. And I think, what are your thoughts on overhiring and then letting the dust fall where it might, versus being lean about it as you go?
Yeah, so we've actually shifted our approach there as well, which I think is helping us find success. We used to, continuously hire FTEs for all of our positions, and before the pandemic, we were relatively large and we were impacted like everyone else. We had to do our first and only ever reduction of force during that time, and we've been in business for over 30 years. And so that was really hard for us as an organization to go through something like that. And so we, understanding that our employees are our most important asset, we didn't want to put ourselves in a position where that could potentially happen again. And so we're being very intentional about our growth and using contract workers, quite frankly, to help us bridge that gap. So right now we're in a point where we have a significant amount of work coming through the organization. And so we're utilizing contract workers to just help surge up. And then we convert them to full-time employees if we can see that we have, a long enough runway that, several months, if not years of work coming. Otherwise, we just, reduce the contract worker staff to meet the demand.
Okay. And you have about 350 employees?
Yes.
So it's a pretty sizable company. And I think offsetting it with contract employee or contract workers is a really healthy way to promote that growth in what you're trying to achieve. And it feels like a good time to bring in AI into the discussion. What are your thoughts, and how are you integrating it with segment design?
Sure. So it is, it's moving fast through the organization, which is exciting. We're learning how to use it in a variety of different ways. Certainly our software engineers are heavily utilizing it. It's come a long way in this short amount of time. I remember probably 7-8 months ago, they were all like, well, this is never going to work. Yeah. And now, I shouldn't say never going to work. It had a long way to go before they were going to be confident to use it. Right. And it has come that far in that short amount of time. So they are heavily utilizing it for writing more the routine type of functions. Outside of engineering, we are utilizing it across the organization for making some of our processes more automated. An example of something we've just recently done is I host a all company meeting every single Monday, and talk about what's happening in the company, new projects, POs we have received, trainings coming up, things like that. And it's fairly has been fairly labor intensive to prepare that. It's a slide deck every single week. And so our team found using Claude to automate all of that. And now that whole presentation can be done in just minutes versus how long it took in the past. So, that's just one example of how we're using that in all areas.
Right. I think using AI for internal administrative kind of tasks is an intelligent use of time. It's when we're using AI for external tasks that I feel like things could get a little bit dicey, especially if there's not that human element checking it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I would say another area we're definitely utilizing it quite a bit is on contract reviews. It's very helpful when we come and do a new contract and it's, 50, 100 pages. Oh man, it just speeds up that amount of time. But yeah, using it externally without that human, it still says things and does things. And you're like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, and especially some of my former clients use AI for marketing, and I'm like, there are so many better tools or people or contractors that you can utilize.
Yeah. And you can often see it, right? You can tell, like you read something, you're like, oh, that's so AI. And which is kind of, I don't know, makes me sad a little bit, I'll be honest, right?
Yeah, same. I mean,
I'm the human coming through.
Exactly. I'm of the belief if a human's buying it, a human should write it.
Yeah, I want to feel that connection with it, and you don't generally feel it through an AI generated whatever, if it's a graphic or some writing.
Right. I totally agree with you on this.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about your 3.5 year tripling your growth, utilizing marketing, utilizing contractor hiring, increasing efficiencies, what is stopping you from executing on that 3x sooner than 3 years?
Honestly, nothing. If the opportunity presented itself tomorrow, we would make it happen. That is something that our customers love about us, is we're able to move a whole lot faster than they often are internally, which is another great reason they come to us, is they need help and they need it now. And to go through their own systems internally could take them, years to do something which we can do in a matter of months.
Yeah.
And so, again, if the opportunity presented itself tomorrow, we'd jump on it. There's nothing that's going to stop us.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it seems like you have the infrastructure to be able to do this. It's just a matter of like zooming out or zooming in, like on a phone, right? How microscopic you want to get with it.
100%.
So there are so many interesting things happening in engineering and AI. Is there anything that is making you raise your eyebrow about what's been happening with AI and engineering especially?
I think what's interesting and what we're seeing a lot of is, how it's being applied to the greater world. And I personally, a little bit about me, I struggle with a lot of it, and a lot of the things that we work on are things that like, ooh, do I want that in the world that I live in? And so it's a really interesting dichotomy for me. Is the technology I think is amazing, and I think how cool is that? But on the flip side, I don't know that I want to live in a world that has, humanoid robotics or drone delivery services. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on, right? And these automated solutions are showing up in every single sector.
Right.
And there's a lot of amazing applications for them that I think are fabulous. I mean, the ability to be able to, drone drop medical supplies in a, rural area. Oh my gosh, phenomenal. Can't wait to be a part of that.
Right.
Being able to give someone Chick-fil-A, no, not so much,
Yeah, they can go drive.
Yeah, they can go drive. And so that's really where, a lot of, not only me, but a lot of the folks in my company, we struggle with that for sure. And, we're a part of helping these companies reach those dreams. And then we like, oh, wow.
Yeah, can't put toothpaste back in the tube though.
Yeah, 100%.
So before we wrap, tell me a little bit about Vacation Lindsay. Who is she? And what inspired you to highlight that aspect of her?
She's a lot of fun. Fun, spontaneous, curious, super calm. And so it's like I had this really interesting moment. I was actually traveling. I was in Morocco, and I was, I think it's one of the biggest mosques in the world, in Casablanca there, and it's kind of jutting out over the Atlantic Ocean. And it happened to be Ramadan, and so it was fascinating. Everybody was there for their prayer time, and sitting right there on the same patio platform outside of the mosque were these funny little scooters. They're all neon, and they play these silly little music, and I thought, this is the most odd dichotomy of things, right there next to each other. And so it's like I jumped on this little scooter because it's like I had to do this. So I'm scootering around this. I'm sure they were meant for the kids, but whatever. And it was at that moment that I was like, how do I take this part of me into my everyday professional work, right? I mean, I was curious. I was like, I wanted to experience that, even though maybe it wasn't, I don't know, appropriate at the moment, but I wasn't being disrespectful or anything. But combining that and figuring out how I could bring that more into my everyday, that fun, curious, open kind of person.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, it's been fun.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about with the curiosity and kind of that single point of failure where you're letting other people make their mistake or have their experience. And so you were having your experience, maybe making a mistake, who knows?
Yeah.
But also having a different way of thinking about how to have fun.
Yeah.
So it all comes together.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
That's
thank
a good way
you
to
so
think about
much
it.
for your time, Lindsay. How can people reach you if they want to contact you or Sigma Design?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. You can always reach out to us on our website at sigmadzn.com.
Perfect. Thank you to our audience today for listening. I'll include Lindsay's bio and information in the show notes below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Again, Lindsay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?